Patience is not weakness, and it is not silence in the face of pain. Patience is what you choose when your heart is tired, when your prayers feel heavy, and when the answers you are waiting for seem delayed. It is the quiet strength of trusting that what is meant for you will not miss you, even if it arrives later than you hoped. We live in a world that demands speed, instant relief, and immediate results, yet the most meaningful transformations happen slowly, unseen, and often through discomfort. Patience teaches us to sit with uncertainty without losing faith, to endure the waiting without hardening our hearts, and to believe that delays are not denials but preparations. Sometimes what breaks us is not the hardship itself, but the impatience we feel while trying to escape it. And sometimes what heals us is learning to stay, to trust, and to grow through the waiting, knowing that every moment of patience is shaping us into someone stronger, wiser, and closer to the life we are meant to live. Patience is not something you discover when life is easy. Patience is revealed when everything within you wants answers now. It shows up when your heart is tired of waiting, when your prayers feel repetitive, and when silence seems to be the only response you receive. In those moments, patience becomes more than endurance. It becomes a decision to trust without clarity, to remain soft without reassurance, and to believe that unseen work is still work. There are seasons where nothing moves on the surface, yet everything is shifting beneath it, and patience is the ability to stay grounded while that hidden transformation takes place. It asks you to hold faith in one hand and restraint in the other, resisting the urge to rush what has its own divine timing. Often, impatience is born not from lack of trust, but from fear. Fear that we have been forgotten, fear that we waited too long, fear that we missed our chance. But patience reminds us that what is written for us does not depend on our anxiety to arrive. It is not delayed by pauses, nor canceled by stillness. The heart learns patience when it understands that control was never the source of peace. We grow restless when we believe that if we do not force movement, nothing will happen. Yet patience gently teaches that growth is not always loud and progress is not always visible. There is a quiet surrender that comes with patience, not the kind that gives up, but the kind that hands matters over while still showing up every day. It is waking up and choosing hope again, even when yesterday looked exactly the same. It is learning to separate effort from outcome, understanding that you are responsible for planting the seed, but not for commanding the rain. Patience allows you to do your part without drowning in the pressure of results. It frees you from measuring your worth by timelines that were never meant to define you. When life delays you, it is easy to interpret the delay as rejection. But patience reframes the narrative. It whispers that sometimes delay is protection, sometimes it is alignment, and sometimes it is mercy you do not yet recognize. What you want today may not be what you need to survive tomorrow. Patience is the space where wisdom catches up with desire. It slows you down long enough for your heart to mature, for your intentions to purify, and for your strength to deepen. Without patience, we arrive too early to places we are not ready to hold. There are prayers that are answered by waiting, not because you are unworthy, but because the answer itself requires a version of you that does not yet exist. Patience becomes the classroom where that version is formed. It teaches discipline in longing and grace in disappointment. It teaches you to sit with discomfort without allowing it to define you. In a world that celebrates instant gratification, patience becomes a quiet rebellion, choosing meaning over immediacy and depth over speed. Patience also exposes attachment. It reveals how tightly we cling to outcomes, people, and expectations, and how deeply we believe our peace depends on them. When those things are delayed, patience invites us to loosen our grip and redirect our trust. It shows us that peace was never meant to be postponed until everything falls into place. Peace is learned in the waiting, practiced in the uncertainty, and strengthened in the absence of guarantees. Through patience, the heart learns to rest even when the mind is restless. There is also grief in patience, the grief of unmet timelines and imagined futures that did not unfold as planned. Patience does not deny this grief. It allows it to be felt without becoming permanent. It teaches you that mourning what did not happen does not prevent what still can. It allows you to release bitterness before it takes root, to soften disappointment before it hardens into despair. Patience gives your heart permission to heal at its own pace, without rushing forgiveness or forcing closure. Sometimes patience is choosing silence when you want to explain yourself, choosing restraint when you want to react, choosing reflection when you want to escape. It is learning that not every battle requires your voice, and not every emotion requires immediate expression. Patience creates space between stimulus and response, and in that space, wisdom lives. It is there that you learn the power of pause, the strength of composure, and the dignity of self-control. Patience also deepens empathy when you learn how heavy waiting can feel. You become gentler with others who are carrying unseen burdens. You stop measuring progress by external success and begin recognizing quiet resilience. Patience teaches you to honor effort even when outcomes are incomplete. It allows you to witness struggle without judgment and to offer compassion without conditions. There are moments when patience feels like standing still while the world moves forward. But patience reminds you that comparison distorts reality. Everyone is on a different timeline, carrying different tests, learning different lessons. Your delay is not their advancement, and their progress is not your failure. Patience brings you back to your own path, anchoring you in the understanding that your journey cannot be rushed without losing what it was meant to teach you. In patience, faith becomes practical. It is no longer just belief in better days, but trust in the present moment. It is believing that even now, something meaningful is happening, even if you cannot name it. Patience trains the heart to see purpose in process, to find value in becoming rather than arriving. It teaches that who you are becoming matters more than how quickly you get there. Patience also refines intention. When you wait long enough, some desires fade, revealing that they were rooted in ego or fear rather than truth. Other desires deepen, proving that they are aligned with your values and worth enduring for. Patience filters what is fleeting from what is essential. It saves you from chasing what excites you temporarily at the cost of what would sustain you long term. At its core, patience is an act of trust that life is not working against you, even when it feels unkind. It is believing that delays are not empty spaces, but sacred intervals where strength is built quietly. It is choosing to remain open-hearted in seasons that tempt you to close off, throw. Patience. You learn that waiting does not mean stagnation, and stillness does not mean abandonment. It is often in the waiting that the deepest transformations take place, shaping a heart that can hold what is coming without breaking under its weight. Patience in emotional healing is one of the most difficult forms of patience because it requires you to sit with feelings you would rather escape. It is easier to wait for an opportunity, a job, or an external change than it is to wait for your heart to mend. Emotional pain does not follow schedules, and healing does not respond to pressure. Yet we often treat our hearts as if they should recover on demand, as if grief, disappointment, and loss should come with expiration dates. Patience invites you to stop demanding timelines from wounds that are still learning how to close. It asks you to honor the pace of your healing rather than shaming yourself for not being over it yet. There is a quiet violence we commit against ourselves when we rush healing. We tell ourselves we should be stronger by now, wiser by now, unaffected by now. But patience teaches that strength is not the absence of pain. It is the willingness to remain present with it without becoming consumed. Healing unfolds layer by layer, and patience is what allows each layer to be felt, understood, and released without being buried alive beneath the next. When emotions are rushed, they do not disappear. They wait unresolved until they find another way to surface. Patience allows you to acknowledge that some experiences change you permanently, and that healing does not mean returning to who you were before. It means learning how to carry what happened without letting it define your future. This kind of patience requires gentleness because harshness delays recovery. You cannot bully your heart into peace. You cannot shame yourself into wholeness. Emotional patience is the understanding that healing is not linear and setbacks are not failures, but reminders that something still needs care. Often, what makes emotional healing unbearable is the fear that the pain will last forever. Patience does not promise that pain will disappear quickly. It promises that it will not remain the same. Emotions evolve when they are allowed space. Patience gives pain room to breathe, and in that space, pain begins to loosen its grip. The moment you stop fighting your feelings, they stop fighting back. This does not make the pain pleasant, but it makes it manageable. There is also patience in forgiving yourself for how you coped when you were hurting. Sometimes healing requires you to revisit moments you regret, choices you wish you had made differently, and reactions that do not reflect who you want to be. Patience reminds you that you were doing the best you could with the tools you had at the time. Growth often begins with compassion, not condemnation. When you are patient with your past self, you create space for your present self to grow without fear. Emotional healing often feels slow because it is undoing patterns that took years to form. Patience teaches you that unlearning is just as important as learning. You are not just healing from a single event. You are healing from the beliefs it created, the fears it reinforced, and the defenses it built. Each time you choose patience, you weaken those old patterns and replace them with awareness. This process is quiet and repetitive, and that is why it requires patience rather than motivation. Sometimes patience means allowing yourself to feel numb when emotions are too heavy to process. Healing does not always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like rest. There are moments when your heart needs stillness more than insight. Patience recognizes that survival is also a form of strength. It does not demand emotional productivity. It understands that some days simply getting through is enough. Emotional patience also involves trusting that clarity will come after confusion, not during it. We often want answers while we are still bleeding, explanations while we are still broken. But patience teaches that understanding follows healing, not the other way around. When emotions are raw, perspective is distorted. Waiting allows the emotional storm to settle so that truth can surface without being clouded by pain. There is patience in rebuilding trust, especially after betrayal or disappointment. Trust does not return because you decide to let go. It returns when safety is consistently proven over time. Patience allows you to protect your heart without closing it completely. It allows you to move slowly, to observe patterns rather than promises, and to honor your boundaries without guilt. Healing trust is not about forcing optimism. It is about allowing evidence to accumulate naturally. Patience also teaches you to stop comparing your healing journey to others. Emotional wounds are deeply personal, shaped by history, temperament, and meaning. What devastates one person may barely affect another, and what lingers for you may have passed quickly for someone else. Patience frees you from the pressure to perform healing in a way that looks acceptable to others. It reminds you that your inner work does not need external validation to be real. There are moments in healing when patience feels like loneliness, because growth often requires you to sit with yourself without distractions. This solitude can be uncomfortable, especially if you are used to external reassurance. Patience teaches you how to become your own safe place. It encourages you to listen inwardly, to notice what your emotions are trying to communicate, and to respond with care rather than avoidance. Patience in emotional healing also means accepting that some pain will resurface unexpectedly. Memories can be triggered, old emotions can return, and familiar heaviness can appear without warning. Patience reframes these moments not as relapses, but as reminders of how far you have come. Each time pain returns, you meet it with more awareness, more tools, and more resilience than before. Healing requires patience because it asks you to let go of who you thought you had to be to survive. Many emotional wounds are held together by identities formed in pain. Patience allows those identities to dissolve slowly, without leaving you feeling empty or lost. It gives you time to discover who you are without the armor, without the constant defense, without the need to protect yourself from everything. Patience also softens self-judgment. It teaches you to speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone you love. When healing feels slow, patience reminds you that rushing would only deepen the wound. It allows you to honor effort even when results are invisible. It teaches you that showing up for your healing, even imperfectly, is enough. Emotional healing is not about erasing pain, it is about integrating it. Patience allows pain to become part of your story without becoming the whole story. It gives you the time needed to find meaning, to extract wisdom, and to transform suffering into depth. This transformation cannot be forced. It unfolds quietly, often without announcement, in moments where you choose understanding over resentment and compassion over blame. Sometimes patience in healing looks like choosing not to reopen wounds just to explain yourself to people who are not listening. It is recognizing when silence protects your peace better than words. Emotional maturity grows in the soil of patience, teaching you discernment about where your energy belongs. You learn that not every hurt needs confrontation, and not every truth needs to be spoken. Immediately, patience allows you to rebuild your relationship with yourself. After emotional pain, self-trust is often damaged. You may doubt your judgment, your instincts, or your worth. Patience restores this trust slowly, through small acts of self-care, honesty, and consistency. Each time you honor your limits, you reinforce safety within yourself. Healing also requires patience because it challenges